Let's have a conversation about the strain and the pressures that employees are under, and why do you think love, giving more time, giving people space to breathe is the answer?
Well, I think when you have to fight for your life, your priorities really shift. And so the pandemic hit and everyone scattered. We tried to figure out what to do to kind of do business as usual. And I think we all quickly realized that we had to make some serious shifts and accommodations. But as we look to move through the pandemic, a lot of people are trying to return to business as usual, or thinking that because people don't have anything to do, that they should maybe be taking on more work, or they're creating very rigid timelines, and they're not taking into consideration that people are in a state of shock.
Yes.
People are dealing with grief, loss, and they're trying to really just recalibrate themselves with what it even means to work.
Right.
So many people have thrown themselves into their work and have not created enough space or time to even think about what it is that they love, to even feel, to even be in touch with what they're feeling. I think about the sister who was Miss America, who had the MBA and the JD and was working, and it looks as if she couldn't handle it anymore. And so I think this great resignation is definitely partially a fear of COVID. People don't want to come to work and be exposed, but I think it's also an opportunity for people to go inward. And I see that as an opportunity to be creative, to really think outside the box, to seek joy, because if we can think about the new normal or the next chapter of the workforce with joy and love, then I think we can create something that better serves everyone who's in those environments.
Yeah. I see it, I liken it to people are now choosing themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Before COVID happened, literally, we were on a collision course to nowhere. People were just, you got to go to this meeting, you got to go. There were so many meetings. There were some meetings that just should have been a text message, right? We just like to have meetings to say we're having meetings and pushing people around. And we had these bossy bosses who were just like, you got to do this, you got to do that. And I realized in the middle of COVID, when people, first we were stunned that we had to sit still. And we were losing our minds that we had to sit still. But once we recalibrated with our inner souls and our bodies, we realized we didn't want to go back to life as normal, right? And so I liken it to the great choosing of ourselves, choosing of our souls, and having those kinds of conversations. I have 3 siblings. I love them dearly. And right now we're in the middle of having discussion, and one of them is upset with the other one, and I literally got up at 1 o'clock this morning and I wrote a loving response. And I say, these are the things that we see. These are the things, not, oh my God, I can't believe you did, but we get so caught up in wanting to be right, wanting to be heard sometimes, and because we're so angry and we feel so affronted and we feel so unheard, we lash back out at what we perceive as things that people are doing to us. But when you're an employer, Joss, I want you to give solid examples for us. When you're an employer and you see something happening with your employees, how do you manage that? You heard me saying recently that I talked to Joshua and to Brianna. People didn't know this, but I would reach out to them and talk to them. How are you doing? I would encourage them, not so much Joshua because he's brand new, but Mike, oh my gosh, Mike and Brianna all the time, right? Would have those conversations, and I will send them a little love, via PayPal or Cash App to say, I appreciate you today. And what I recognized early on was when people feel treated well and treated with respect for the work that they do, because my work does not exist without them. I can't show up fully and function the way I want to without them showing up fully and functioning in their places, right? And so I show them what I would want shown to me. Does that make sense, Joss? Right?
It sure does. Yeah, and I'll say that, for a number of years, I was running this operation alone. And so it's only been a couple of years that I've actually had team members. And in the past 12 months, in fact, we've grown exponentially.
Right.
And so I find this to be an exciting challenge. It's an opportunity for me to think about, we're a company that's rooted in love. Love Now Media. So I have to incorporate practices and policies that serve my teammates, that make them feel loved, that empower them so that when they're out representing this company, they feel like, you know, that we're practicing what we preach. And so there are a number of things. One is giving people the time they need. You know, sometimes people just need time. They need a little breath with their deadlines. There's a term that we use called work sprints. And usually that means we're going to sprint and get through a deadline on a project. During this pandemic, I don't want to sprint anywhere. You know, let's make sure that we're breathing while we're performing these tasks. And so if someone is struggling to meet a deadline, let's just shift the deadline. And I know that there are, you know, we have to answer to folks, to partners, to sponsors and all of that. But right now, most people understand it's about communication. And so I think sometimes people try to overperform to accommodate for policies and practices of something as simple as being able to communicate when you're running behind or falling short. You don't have to kill yourself to meet a deadline when you have the option to simply say, hey, I think I need a moment here. I think I need 2 days, you know? So that's one thing. I think also just building the self-esteem of the team. I feel like, you know, capitalism really profits off of low self-esteem. There's so many people who work at companies for years and they'll be petrified of asking for a raise, but the company is growing and people are thriving. And these folks know that they've made contributions, but they've never been celebrated because their self-esteem their low self-esteem has been taken advantage of. So I really like to do exercises to make sure that we're all looking at each other and hyping each other up. You know, my team created brag sheets at the end of the year, you know, and I wanted everyone to know that as we grew and as we were beginning to really thrive in a new way, that it wasn't just me, it wasn't just the company, that each and every person on the team made a significant contribution. And it was so cool to see people writing out their brag sheets like, wow, I forgot I did that. I forgot I made that contribution to this work. I see myself now in a different way. And so that was really empowering for our team. And I think just in general, you know, expanding the length of time for projects. That's something, you know, projects that used to have like a 1 week deadline, let's just make them a month. You know, things that were going to be a month, let's make them 3. And we had something that was going to be a quarter-long project. Let's make that 10 months during COVID, because people are sick. They need to take care of their loved ones. They have to navigate childcare. People have their own personal issues. And again, people just need time to grieve and to breathe.
I agree. What advice do you have, especially for young people, and not just young people, because there are those of us who are not so young, seasoned enough, when we walk into spaces where we know our value, but we're being told we can't afford to pay. We can't afford to pay you, and so just do it or do it for free. Would you advise anybody to work for free at all?
Well, I think it depends on the return on investment.
Right. Okay.
So, you know, one of the things I rarely share is that I actually invested a lot of time. If you look at your time as an investment, it's a different way of thinking about it. You're not just volunteering.
Right.
And so I invested a good amount of time with someone who is pretty much a celebrity now, like Ava DuVernay. I invested several years of time, but I gained so much. I learned from her. It was like getting an MBA, you know, for free. So I wouldn't say don't work for free, but be very strategic about the ways that you invest your time. I think another thing that you can do is create ways to get some kind of a commission that helps to create equity for the additional time or value that you put in. So for example, I once took a job that paid me far below my rate, and I knew that the company really just didn't have the budget to accommodate the salary that I was requesting, but I believed in that company and I believed in their work. So I worked into my contract that for the business that I bring in, I get a certain percentage of commission. And so then I was able to accept a lower salary, but then to make up for the gap in that salary by then bringing more revenue to the company and filling that gap that way. So I think there are a number of ways to to work that out, but you have to just keep an eye on how much time you're investing and whether there's a return on that. And yeah, and as I was telling my sister is a clown. She's a professional clown. And sometimes she questions whether she should be working in corporate. And I told her, you know, you've actually resisted some of the harm that capitalism has done for the sake of joy. And so she's out spreading joy, but it was the first time she felt validated in not going into that corporate structure and actually doing something that was joyful. So I said, you know, now that you're able now that you understand the system, just make sure you work the system. Don't let it work you. You know? Yeah.
Excellent advice. Excellent. I hope you all are listening. Don't call me and ask me what that lady said. Because there's so much going on here. As we move forward with the workforce, do you think things will go back to the way they were, or do you believe that we'll shift into a momentum where we are facing and forging our new normals with working with people? Do you think more people will be able to work from home versus, you know, getting on a bus every day or getting on a train or driving 1 hour each way to get to and from work? Do you think we're more productive when we're able to work in our own spaces?
Well, I think that's up to each individual. I know for me, there are times when I need to get out. I have children at home. I have a dog that barks. Sometimes I need to be at the office, and I think people should have more options for sure. I definitely think people should have more options for paid time off, and that these extensions and slower work paces should be built into the way that we work. But I also think that it's going to be up to people to protest in their own ways. And I think sometimes, I mean, people are leaving jobs that they worked really hard for, and that's their way of protesting because they want rest. But I think sometimes people have to protest within their workplaces to advocate for the policies that will actually make those workplaces more equitable and geared towards more wellness oriented practices. So
I agree. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So much. This was so good.
Sure. It's always a pleasure.
How can people reach out to Love Now Media? Can they submit stories? Tell us all about Love Now Media now and what you're doing now.
Yes. Please follow us on all social media at Love Now Media. Our website is lovenowmedia.com. People can submit stories, but we're going to have a big call for stories March 1st. So follow us and stay on the lookout for that. We also have 2 big events coming up in the metaverse. So we're not meeting in real life right now, but Love Now Media, we're taking love into the metaverse. And so if you follow us on social media, sign up for our newsletter, you'll get more information about that and you'll be able to come to our events. We're going to have some fun with creating avatars and getting to have real conversations and actually build community in a new way online. So lovenowmedia.com.
I want to thank you. We're starving for